What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Daily Sean. For those of you who haven't been here before, my name is Sean. I do a daily video on something related to nursing. No rhyme or reason, probably not going to change. Talking about patients who are sexually harassing nurses. Now, the majority of these instances are the male patient harassing the female patient. Remember, male nurses are only about just shy of 10% of the nursing population, so just from a pure mathematical perspective, but to be all honest, it could be anyone harassing any nurse. Do we really need to go down the road of sexual preferences? The list is endless. Really, people, I don't think I need to talk about that. Let's just talk about, in general, patients sexually harassing nurses. We'll just keep it straightforward. First thing you need to think about is, are you part of the problem? Yes, it's time to give a little bit of a self-evaluation and have a little bit of self-awareness of, are you giving off any kind of vibe that says, I'm interested? Maybe you're doing it by accident, maybe you're doing it on purpose. Either way, pay attention to how you're acting and how you are dressing. Yes, both men and women, the way that you are dressing. If you are dressing in some way that literally flirts over the line of professionalism, you may want to reevaluate your wardrobe decisions. For instance, are you wearing a crap load of perfume and or cologne? I mean, seriously, are you wearing something that's revealing in any way? Both men and women. For the women, are you wearing anything that is not covering body parts the way it should be? Men, are you wearing the stupid scrubs that are so freaking tight on your body you can see the lines of your deltoid in your scrub? You get the picture. Pay attention to your wardrobe. Are you accidentally giving off a vibe that shouldn't be there? Along with self-awareness are you not only dressing an inappropriate manner, are you acting are you acting in an inappropriate manner? Are you flirtatious in some way that you don't realize it? Everybody likes to say they have amicable personalities. Are you acting in such a way that your patient is interpreting it improperly? Instead of you being overly friendly, fun, humorous, is it bordering on flirtatious? Once again, not saying you are doing this. Please don't take this as accusatory. You simply need to evaluate your actions first. Think about how your actions are perceived. If your actions at work are the same actions that you have at the bar, you got some splaining to do, Lucy. Then you got some work to do, because that's just not appropriate. Pay attention to the words you use. Pay attention to your body language. Am I saying you need to change who you are? Absolutely not. Simply saying you need to think of it as, how is the patient perceiving you? That's all. And lastly, there are some patients that find, now this is a very sensitive subject, I'm just going to come right out and say this, physical touch for nurses is a no-brainer. We're going to have to touch our patients sooner or later. This just going to happen. I mean, seriously, that's why they call it physical assessment. But some patients will interpret physical assessment differently, and maybe you need to just explain what you're doing. And I'm not saying you're doing it wrong. Simply, once again, talking about the patient's perception. Are you touching them in a manner that is not professional? Just going to leave it at that, because there's so many things I could or could not say about that. If anything you're doing could be interpreted as sensual, then it's time to reevaluate your physical assessment skills. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. Moving on. And now that we've talked about you, we're going to talk about the patient. First, there are just some patients that are just good old-fashioned creeps. They're just creepy, dirty old men, dirty old women, and it's all they think about. You can thank Hollywood for that, okay? Thank you very much to all those out there in Hollywood for making us the sexy nurse in some way, shape, or form. You can also thank Grey's Anatomy. You have that to battle with even before you step foot into the room. Even before you step foot in front of your patient, they already have some sort of warped idea of what you're supposed to be. Just accept that truth. There are creeps out there. They're going to be creepy, and they're going to be creeping on you. Just let it go. You can't change them just like they can't change you. Second thing I'd say about patients is do your homework. Listen to what other nursing staff has had to say about them. Everybody has that sixth sense about them when you first look at them. Now, I'm not saying you're going to sit it there and prejudge everyone, because looks can be deceiving, but every so often you look at someone and you just get that thing in the bottom, like goes into your throat and down into your stomach, and you're like, something is off. So your creepometer starts going off. Just pay attention to it, okay? Always be on the defense, not the offense. Think about worst case scenarios when you enter the patient's room at all times. How you can play defensive care. Making sure that there's no way that someone can grab something off of your body that doesn't need to be grabbed. Why I'm not a big fan of lanyards. Not a big fan of them at all. In this day and age, you're going to have to play defensive nursing. It's the world we live in. After you've done your self-assessment and you've done an assessment of the patient from afar, if the patient actually does some sort of sexual harassment, you need to stop it right then and there. You do not allow it to happen. You don't giggle it off. You don't shrug it off. Whatever you do, you handle it in a professional manner right out of the gate. The minute that they've crossed over the line, the minute they go from a acceptable to an unacceptable behavior, you stop what you're doing and you confront them immediately and say, hey, listen, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, I am your nurse, you are the patient. We are going to maintain that professional relationship while I am caring for you. You will not say this, you will not do this, and I will respect you, and I will have enough respect for you to do the same. If after this conversation they continue, then you bring in reinforcements. You bring in a patient advocate. You bring in your boss. You bring in someone else to have the same conversation with them. Whatever you do, you don't allow any of it to slide in any way. You don't allow it to slide because you think it was by accident in some way. You stop it right then and there and say, I'm sorry, Mr. or Mrs. Smith. Did you realize that that was offensive and that you should not be doing or saying that? I'm not exactly sure how you're perceiving this, but here's how I have perceived this. Now, I would recommend that you say this in front of someone else besides you and the patient, because then it becomes a he said, she said kind of scenario. Have a witness in some way. It's kind of hard to do it when it first happens, so if it happens, stop what you're doing, you walk out of the room, you go grab a witness, nurse's aide, another nurse, you walk back into the room and say, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, I just walked out of the room because this happened at this time, and I would like you to know this, and this. And you keep it professional. You don't go all ghetto on them. You don't go schoolyard on them and start throwing haymakers and slapping them silly and saying everything you really want to say, like, listen, creep. Can't say that because you are there in a professional role. You need to maintain your professionalism, even though they probably deserve a slap, sometimes more than a slap. Maintain your professionalism. The reality is that the longer you do this, the more exposed you're going to be to this behavior, and you need to have a plan. Think about the things that I've talked about. Take cues from other nurses who have had to deal with this experience. Can't wait to hear what everyone else has to say about this kind of experience. What have you done to extinguish this fire before it got out of control? What were the words that you used? How did you handle it? Inquiring minds want to know. Always want to hear from you. Leave me a comment down below. You know your comments are my caffeine. Share this with somebody. And as always, check your own pulse first.